And President Donald Trump has left Busan following his meeting with Chinese counterpart Xi Jinping on board Air Force One. Trump said the bilateral was a great success. He announced lower tariffs on Chinese imports and said the issue over U.S. access to rare earths has been settled. He said the meeting has yielded an extendable one-year deal on the supply of crucial rare earths. He also said China is to buy tremendous amounts of soybean. Xi, in a statement to Chinese media, said that he has reached consensus with Trump on trade issues. He said Trump and he have agreed to maintain communication and shorten list of problems. All right, to discuss more, we're now being joined by Dr. Robert Edwin Kelly, professor of political science at Busan National University in Busan in South Korea. Thank you so much for joining us on the broadcast. Now, this is the most sought-after meeting that everyone was expecting, and we were looking at what the results would be. First of all, how would you look at these comments coming after the meeting via Trump?
Well, I think it's actually pretty great to give the president his due. I think there was a real possibility that this thing would go nowhere. Trump has really doubled down, even tripled down on the tariffs in the last 8 months or so. We're all sort of familiar with his outbursts on Twitter and stuff, talking about, overnight we're going to have 100% new tariffs and stuff on China. And it looks like he was pressured, and I imagine Xi Jinping was it too, at home to come to some kind of deal, and that happened. It would be great for both China and the United States if the trade war could cool off. It would more generally be good for the world economy if the trade war would cool off. And so on this basic point, right, at least they're talking, and at least there looks like there's going to be some kind of reciprocal tariff reduction. There'll be some rollback to the more traditional relationship of soybean exports and things like that, right, and rare earths. So a lot of that stuff seems to have been fixed. But again, with Donald Trump, you never know, right? I mean, Trump changes his mind and he'll say something on TV in a couple of weeks. But it's probably about as good as could have been achieved at this event.
And do you think Trump did achieve what he was aiming for?
Yeah, I do broadly. I think the president can go home and mark it as a win. I mean, this is important for the president. The perception that sort of he is sort of the strong figure defending America's interests. That's real important for him back home, for sort of conservative media in the United States. And he got that. He got the photographs and the handshakes and stuff like that. And again, he has the illusion of progress, but of course there hasn't actually been a signed deal. I think this is one of Trump's problems, right? He kind of thinks that if he sort of talks to these people individually and he shakes their hand and says they're my friend and stuff, that's enough. And of course it's not, right? I mean, diplomacy actually requires a lot of staff work. And this is the weakness of the Trump administration, right? That a lot of this stuff is sort of vagaries of handshakes and friendship and whatever, but it all has to be written down, right? And there's got to be black letter law at the end of it. And it's just not clear that has come out of this meeting, right? We'll just have to wait and see what gets released from the two sides. But again, it could have been worse. It could have been a lot worse. So I guess we'll take it.
All right. When I look at all the aspects, what according to you, has been the most magnificent outcome of these talks? We know about rare earth, soybean. Also, we had these comments coming from China and U.S. both that they were going to work on the Russia-Ukraine war. What has been the most starking thing that you have observed in this meeting?
Well, I would argue that the Russian-Ukraine war is actually significantly more important than any of the trade deals because it's geostrategic and because lots and lots of people are dying, right? I mean, if soybeans cost a little bit more, that's a lot less expensive than, Ukrainian children getting blown up at kindergarten. So if Trump can actually pull that out of Xi, right, which is to say if Trump can get Xi to lean on Putin to sort of stop the war, that would be the big takeaway. But I'm pretty skeptical of that. I think otherwise the big takeaway, probably the best thing to come out of it, is a return to normality, right? So there's going to be a lot of focus in the business news in the coming days about this sector and that sector, soybeans and chips and rare earths, and all these sectoral issues are obviously important. But the larger issue is to sort of stop muddling and mucking around in these sectors and just sort of allow the trade relationship to go back to what it was, right? Where the government isn't, the two sides aren't intervening in this sector or that sector, and just let it occur naturally. And if that happens, if we get a broad-based tariff reduction, which looks like it's what they agreed to, I think that's the big takeaway rather than a particular focus on, NVIDIA chips or something.
And how do you take the comments that came on nuclear testing that Trump had, talked about? That was something that came right before the meeting, and he avoided the question during the meeting as well.
Yeah, I saw that too. My sense is that's just Trump being Trump. He kind of shoots his mouth off on Twitter and TV and stuff like that. I think he saw something about the Russian supposed nuclear engine in the cruise missile and misunderstood that to mean nuclear testing. A nuclear engine is different than a nuclear bomb, and I'm not sure the president fully got that. I don't think the United States actually needs to go back to sort of underground, actual live explosives. The United States hasn't done that in 35 years, and the U.S. arsenal is still widely considered to be reliable. I think that's more just sort of like events-driven Trumpian outbursts. We'll have to see if the Defense Department, or the Department of Energy, actually follows up on this, but I would be pretty surprised if this is actually policy and not just a sort of Trump outburst.
And also, before I let you go, there's a lot of topics to discuss about here. Also on Taiwan, he specifically said that Taiwan was not talked about. Is it because of the where the meeting took place? Any reason why that happened?
Well, that's actually a good point on sort of the host location. So I'm in South Korea, and the South Korean government, this South Korean government, it's progressive, a leftist government, is real wary about getting sucked into a large Sino-US conflict over Taiwan. But of course, that is the big issue overhanging the entire US-China relationship, right? If China were to make a move against Taiwan, and there's some predictions out there that this will happen by the end of the decade, if China were to move against Taiwan, what would happen? Would the United States defend it? Would the United States lead a large coalition to fight against China? That coalition would presumably include Japan, Australia, perhaps South Korea. I mean, there are a lot of countries in Asia that don't want to see China roll over Taiwan. And of course, that could be hugely dangerous. And I think that's probably why they stepped around it, because Trump doesn't want to do that. He likes this image of being a peacemaker. He wants the Nobel Prize and all that kind of stuff. But I mean, at some point, it would be good if the two sides talked about that and got some kind of rules of the road, because that's the big issue, right? If there's ever going to be like World War III in the future, it's going to be probably Taiwan is the most likely place where that would begin and then escalate.
Very interesting. Well, of course, we'll have to look forward to when we see the documents about these deals and what comes out of it. But thank you so much for joining us on the broadcast and giving your perspective. Pleasure having you.
Thanks for having me.